Undeadly Out Loud. I'm absolutely chuffed to be sat here with director Neil Marshall to talk about his new movie, Duchess. I mean, the man needs no introduction with movies like Dog Soldiers, Doomsday, Centurion, um, the Hellboy reboot that you did a little while back. And I know you don't often like to talk too much about that, but I'm going to say right now, it ain't a bad movie. It's actually a pretty good movie. So,
Okay, I'm glad you like it.
nah, take that one off your box. Like at the end of the day, these things happen. But here we are with a little bit of a genre switch. I know that action always kind of is laced throughout your movies. I
Yeah.
know it's something you're very, very passionate about and something you love. But we have gone full tilt action here. Before we get into the Duchess, though, I have one quick question. If you would just humour me for a second, and this is a little bit of an icebreaker, get to know you sort of thing. What is what was the first movie that you ever saw that made you want to be a director? Like that thing you saw up on the big screen, and you were like, "I'm going to do that one day."
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Absolutely.
And in watching that at the same time, I think it was on TV. If you know, around the same time was the making of Raiders of the Lost Ark. So it was like seeing, both sides of the coin. And yeah, when I saw that, I was like, I was 11 years old, and I was like, that's what I have to do.
And what was it that about that movie that captured your that just captured that spark that made you like something inside your belly?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was the sense of adventure, the action, just everything about that movie. I love it's my number one movie. It always will be, and because it's had such an impact on my life, I guess, as much as anything. And then seeing how it was made and understanding the process for the first time, and yeah, I just fell in love with movie making.
It's cool how that works as well because sometimes, and I've been in love with movies my whole life and everything like that, and it got me down this road doing interviews with people like yourself. And sometimes when you do see how the soup was made or how the sauce was made, you do kind of go, "Oh, it's not as magical anymore." So it's great that kind of like you saw that and you still thought, "No, that's exactly what I'm going to do."
Yeah, I mean, I think also it was it was a particular age of filmmaking when still everything was practical and
Yeah.
and it was less. It wasn't about green screens and things like that. I might not have felt the same way if it had been 20 years later. I just don't know. But I think part of that was the practical aspect of making films, going out to the desert and doing these kind of lunatic things, and blowing up stuff and shooting guns and things like that. And it looked very appealing.
And that shows quite a lot in Duchess because no spoilers, but we end up in a desert at times, so that's pretty awesome. But so, like I said, it's not like you haven't done action before. You've done action quite a few times. It's laced throughout your movies, obviously, but here we are with sort of a globe-trotting action thriller. Can you tell me a little bit about the initial stages of Duchess, the kind of the genre switch, how the idea came about?
I've always wanted to jump around genres and not specifically be tied down to one. But I think, yes, as you said earlier, like the common thread throughout all my work is action. And that's the stuff I love to do most. But yeah, this one came about was Charlotte and I were having sushi in London and back in 2018, and we were talking about gangster movies and our love of gangster movies. And at some point in the conversation was suggested, like, what if we did a female Scarface? And both being big fans of that movie, and that was where the seed was planted, and it evolved from there and changed. And I don't think it's so much a female Scarface. I think it evolved into something completely different and brought in a lot of kind of a British element to it as well, which I like to put in my movies, with the language and the humor and all that kind of stuff. And then it suddenly became this sort of totally different beast that we wouldn't end up making. We came up with the idea in 2018, we shot it in 2022, and now it's going out in 2024. I mean, this is it's an evolution that most films go through, and in post-production as well, and bringing in the music and the design for the titles and stuff like that. I wanted to give it a almost 70s, late 60s 70s kind of vibe to it, which is again movies that I love from that period.
And Charlotte Kirk is absolutely in her element as Duchess. We've seen her in a few things before, obviously, but I feel like this is the first time we've maybe seen exactly what Charlotte Kirk can do, and we see her kind of at her fullest in this movie. How was that getting that collaboration with her and working out this character, or was it a case of she trusts the vision so you can trust her with the character, or do you guys build it together?
We built it together, really. I mean, it was, although I did the physical writing, we were always bouncing ideas backwards and forwards off each other, and we coming up with a story and the characters and such like, and building it from the ground up. I think what you say is correct, because I think in a way this is the closest to her that
Mm.
any of the characters have been so far, because the character is East End girl, and that's where Charlotte came from, and it's like, so this one's very close to her heart, I think, and she really mucked in with learning boxing and firearms
Yeah.
and fighting skills and stuff like that. So she put the work in.
And how much? I mean, you don't really want to pull the curtain back on that one, but there is a lot of action. There's a lot of stunt performance in it. How much of it is Charlotte? Do you think, like on average?
Quite a bit. I mean,
Nice.
percentage wise, I don't know, probably like 90% of it, something like that.
That's cool. That's cool.
Obviously, anything where like she could get hurt, or if she took a wrong punch to the face or something like that. I mean, that makes it tricky. But working with excellent stunt performers,
Mm.
uh, everything was handled well. So she was in there for like at least 90% of what's on screen.
And of course, strong female leads are not a new thing for you. Emma Cleesby, Shauna McDonald, Rona Mitra, Olga Kurylenko. You've dealt with all these women. Now you've got Charlotte Kirk in there, and it's absolutely
Hmm.
brilliant. How important is it for these women to have such strong roles for you in your movies? Because it seems to be a bit of a through line.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of became a through line after Descent,
Yeah.
definitely, and it was just something that I enjoyed writing, those kind of characters, but also, they're kind of grounded characters. They're strong, strong women. They use their wits as much as
Mm.
their brawn, but they're not superheroes by any stretch of the imagination. And more often than not, they get hurt, they get beaten up, or they get stuck in
She
caves
takes
or
a few
whatever it is.
punches
Like,
to be sure.
yeah, I mean, always putting the cast through hell on most of my movies, for sure.
Absolutely. And another strong female that we have in this movie, an absolute icon of the industry. I am a huge fan of when a swear word is used correctly in a movie, and especially when somebody drops the C bomb.
Yeah.
Stephanie Beecham probably gets my favorite C bomb of any movie ever. What was it like working with Stephanie Beecham on this, and just seeming to let her run with it, if you know what I mean?
No, absolutely. I mean, she embraced, that character was fun to write anyway, but then,
Yeah.
getting Stephanie to play that part, and she's such an icon in herself. So just to let her rip with that character and just hear her say those words was just
Mm.
hilarious. And then, do the things that she does in the film. I just thought it's a really interesting role for, an older actress that isn't playing a granny or something like that.
Yeah.
She's still a very, very feisty woman, and leader of the pack, which is she's like a female. She's like a godmother, I guess, in a way. And yeah, it was just a lot of fun. I loved hearing her swear.
Oh,
She
she's
does
so
it
good
so
at
well.
it as well. She's so good at it. And when she first says, like, when she drops that C bomb, I was kind of just sat there going, did Stephanie Beecham just said that, right? I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah.
And your male lead, Phil Winchester. How exactly? Because this movie feels like it was also kind of written for this actor. It's almost too perfect for him. How did he come on board?
Well, I mean, a while back, I was in line to do some direct some episodes of Strike Back, because I love that
Oh,
show,
nice.
and I wanted to work with him then, and sadly scheduling didn't work out. But I always sort of kept him in mind as like somebody I really admired his chops, So I was like, as the script developed, it was like, I think Phil would be perfect for this role on
Mm.
so many levels. I mean, I remember being surprised when I found out he wasn't English, like, because he's so
Yeah, yeah.
convincing in Strike Back. I was like, what? You mean he's American? He's like, well, you know, I know he's got like his mum's English and his grandparents are English, whatever. So like he spends a lot of time here. He can obviously pull off a totally convincing English accent. But he's US born. He lives in Montana or somewhere like that. You know, he's very American, and but that was great. That fit the bill perfectly. He's like an American with British sensibilities, which was like the perfect combination. Obviously, like he's devastatingly handsome and ripped as fuck, and so like that was just perfect for the character, because I wanted the character to be sort of like the anti James Bond. It's like he's, you know, smooth, suave, and sophisticated, but he is, to all intents and purposes, he's one of the, you know, he's a bad guy, he's a villain, he's a gangster. But you know, you can't help but love him, and you know, hopefully, you know, the audiences will see him through Scarlett's eyes and fall for him as well.
And would you? Is there any plans or ideas? Because it's a very rich world that you've made here. There's some characters in there we don't get very much of. The likes of Colm Meany's character, who I just instantly fell in love with, and I'm like, I need to see more of this guy. I mean, who doesn't want to see more of Colm Meany anyway? But is there any plans of maybe dipping back into this, or is it kind of like we've done Duchess, let's move?
Well, I wouldn't want to. I don't like to hex it. There was a discussion at some point. I think Charlotte was pushing for like writing part one under the title or something like that. And it's like, don't hex it. Like, this is a total standalone movie, and you know, if it does well enough, who knows what might happen. But you know, let's not preempt that too much. You know, only time will tell, and audiences decide with their feet. So we'll see. I mean, anything's possible.
I think it's definitely got legs.
It would be nice to come back and visit some of those characters for sure.
Exactly. Like I say, like Colm Meany, we don't get a great deal of him, but I'm sitting there like, I want to see more of him. But then also the three guys, the team of the three guys, Winchester and Sean Pertwee. Like, I'm sitting there like, I kind of want to see a prequel for these guys, and it's just sort of like, you've already built this little world that exists already in my head. So just put it on screen for me, please.
Okay, fine, just for you.
Well, that would be nice. That would be nice. People can catch the movie. It's going to be in the UK. I believe it's the 9th of August.
Nice.
It's going to be hitting the UK. Some cinemas in the UK, and then it's going digital download on the 12th of August. But before I let you go, I do need to geek out for a quick hot second, because as I mentioned, I'm a massive fan of Doomsday. It sits in my top 5 movies of all time.
Yay! I love talking to Doomsday fans.
It's literally one of those movies that it feels like the director was living in my head for a little bit and gave me all the things I love about movies. And I wanted to ask, what is going through your head, or what drugs are you taking, or how much sleep had you not had, how much coffee had you been drinking when you wrote Saul's entrance in Doomsday to the theme of Good Thing?
That was that was a bit of a fever dream, wasn't it?
It's so amazing, though.
The whole script was a bit like that, of like, you know, I'll come up with this stuff and see if I can get away with it, and you know, somebody amazingly like agreed to pay for the whole thing. I always knew I was going to have him do some kind of a musical entrance. I just thought, like, knowing Craig was playing the character and stuff, I was just thought, you know, we can have a lot of fun with this, because they're like, you know, post-apocalyptic cannibals doesn't mean to say they don't know how to have a good time. So like, they still party. So you know, we did that whole scene. I think when we were scouting the location, which was actually a theme park in Cape Town, and the place that we filmed that whole auditorium was the food court. You know, we disguised this whole thing, put in all these stands, but it had a stage, so it was the food court. Anyway, it was this huge space, and it looked post-apocalyptic when it was normal. And when we were there, they played over the tannoy system, whatever it is. They were playing music, and one of the tracks that came up was "Fine Young Cannibals" and "Good Thing." And I was just like, this is serendipity. This is meant. I was like, we got to use this track. It's the Cannibals. So, and it just worked perfectly. And since there was a lot of other kind of 80s music in there, because the whole thing is just like one big tribute to every great movie that came out in the 80s, as far as I'm concerned. So I thought, we'll get that song in there. It worked perfectly. You know, Craig danced his heart out. It was like, I was like, can we have 2 songs? Because I want to do that, and I also want to do the can. But it's like, yeah, okay, let's just pack them all in there. So It worked out
It
well.
is though. It's just a total fever dream of a scene, as you say, and it's one of those things that like whenever I talk to people about Doomsday, I show them that clip, and I'm like, just watch this, and then decide if you want to watch the movie. And 9 times out of 10, probably 10 times out of 10, it's like, yeah, I'm going to watch that. So
Mostly like, what the hell is going on?
it's
So I
like,
remember when Sean Pertwee first read the script, so last thing we'd done was Dog Soldiers, and he read the script, and he was like, it ain't quite up to there for my character anyway. It ain't quite up there as Sergeant Wells. And then he read his death scene, and he was like, oh, I need to be in this movie. I want to be in that death scene.
that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So I've got 2 last questions before I let you go. I realize I'm taking a bit of your time here, but I've got 2 last questions.
Fine.
So first of all, as you may tell, I'm from the UK. I'm a little bit of a local lad as well. I'm from the northeast, born in Ashington, so a place that I think you know quite well. What kind of advice would you give someone? Because you've been a bit of a shining light for people like me in the movie industry, the way you've carried yourself throughout your career, and you've had more hits than misses, definitely. What kind of advice would you give somebody wanting to come into this from like sort of our area?
Well, first of all, don't let that put you off. I mean, that's a big thing. Obviously, when I was a kid or whatever, growing up in Newcastle and thinking, shit, London seems far enough away, let alone Hollywood. It's like, you don't have to think about it in those terms anymore. Everything is right there. You've got a camera in your phone. You can edit things on your laptop. You can, we had a little Super 8 camera, but you just use what you have at the time. And so I just say, don't limit yourself. Don't think, I'm from the Northeast. Why I haven't got a chance? Why the hell not? Ridley Scott did it before me, So, anything's possible. Be determined. That's the only way you're going to get anywhere anyway. It's like, you've got to have some talent, sure, but you've got to have the drive and determination to do it, because you're going to get way more knockbacks than anything else, and you've got to keep on going. So you got to grow a thick skin. You kind of got to be single-minded about it as well. You might have to sacrifice a lot of other stuff. You might have to go without money for a long time just to get that foot, to earn that foot in the door. Try and get on sets, try and get onto an actual production. I mean, to be honest, I'd say given the choice between like going to film school or getting on set and earning practical experience as anything you can do, I'd choose that as an option. I think that's way better. Not that film schools, they're fine, but I mean, the way the education system at the moment is that you're going to come out in debt and all that kind of stuff. So you've got to weigh all these things up. And then unless you manage to get to like the National Film and Television School, which is difficult and expensive, there's no guarantee of anything. And with that, you've got a pretty good chance. But everywhere else, you're still going to have to come out and do the practical experience anyway. So just skip that and do the practical experience. And, you might earn a bit of money. You're going to earn lots and lots of experience, which is so invaluable. And make contacts. Make as many contacts as you can. There's no perfect recipe for it. It's different for everybody. But another lad I know. So on Centurion, I gave this young lad a job as a runner on the film, because he showed true determination when I met him. He'd come from Newcastle, fought his way through a blizzard to get to the studio for his job interview, whereas lots of local people had said, "Oh, it's snowy, I can't make it." And he was like, "To hell with that shit." He was like, "I'm coming for my meeting," and I said, "Right, give him a job immediately." Well, 12 years later, he's now a director. His name is Chris Foggin. He directed Fisherman's Friends and Bank of Dave. And he's another Geordie lad who's done well.
That's amazing. That's awesome to hear, and of course, I suppose it always helps to help people on the way up as well.
Absolutely, and just knowing talent when you see it,
Duchess, you can go to the cinema, select UK cinemas on the 9th of August to see it, and digital download it hits on the 12th of August. I think everybody should check it out. I'll be dropping.
I highly recommend seeing it in the cinema, because I designed it for the big screen, but it also it's gonna be a fun film to watch with an audience.
100%.
People, it's a good laugh,
and it's different. It's like I think it's what we need right now in a world full of, as you say, like green screen and superheroes, and
Yeah,
we need these movies to come back in a big bad way. And I'm so glad to see that over the last year they're trickling back through, and we're starting to get those big movies that need to be seen at the cinema. You can
definitely.
watch your superheroes on a Sunday afternoon. It's fine. Get yourself to the cinema and watch Duchess.
Yeah.
So the last question, and it kind of pertains to that a little bit, is what was the last movie that you watched on the big screen, and juxtapose that to the first movie you saw. How does Neil view cinema now as he did back then?
Well, it's a different world. I was so the first film I saw in the cinema was Mary Poppins.
Nice,
My parents
nice.
took me to see that when I was, I don't know how old I was, but the second film was The Spy Who Loved Me. So that's kind of quite a change, and certainly that, that's watching them ski off the cliff at the beginning of that film
Yeah,
with an audience in the UK at that time was like, I was like, oh my god, this is an amazing experience. The last film that I saw at the cinema just a few days ago was Deadpool and Wolverine,
hmm
which was absolutely hilarious, and I had a great time with it. Really, that was brilliant. And
and
yeah, very different, very different.
do you still feel that same love of the cinema when you go and see the big screen?
Absolutely, every time. Not
Awesome.
necessarily when I'm walking out of the movie, because it's not, they're not all as great as Deadpool and Wolverine, but when it works out, yes, it still gives me the rush, still gives me the buzz, and it's that's what I aspire to.
And that's the rush and the buzz that people will no doubt undoubtedly have when they walk out of your movies too, Neil. Again, I have been a huge fan of your career since the start. I loved Dog Soldiers way back in the day. I really, really, really loved Duchess as well. It was something completely different. I didn't watch the trailer for it or anything like that. The guy sent me
Okay,
over a copy of
surprises.
it to watch, so I wanted to just go in and just what's Neil Marshall got for us now, and yeah, completely different. Absolutely loved it, and just totally up my street. And as I say, Charlotte Kirk, 100%. I think this is kind of like a showpiece for her, if you know what I mean. Like, we've
Hmm.
seen her before and we've seen her do different things, but I don't think we've seen this before from her. So
And
I
I
loved it.
hope I hope the twist, I hope the big twist halfway through left you a bit shocked.
It kind of did a little bit. I was because yeah, I mean I'm not going to say anything, but because spoilers and whatnot. But yeah, it did throw me for a bit of a loop, considering I didn't think it was that movie, and then it is that movie, and I was like, oh, it's that movie now. But no,
Cool.
Neil, thank you so much for jumping on and doing this, giving me some of your time. I can't wait for people to see Duchess, and I think they're all going to love it.
I hope so. Cheers, man. Thank you.